Noah Turner's hands were already covered in grease when he spotted her struggling with a jammed bike chain on the side of the park trail, her hair falling into her face, her expensive-looking sneakers scuffed with dirt. "Need a hand?" he asked, kneeling before she could even respond. Her head snapped up.
Oi!
"Yeah, I think it's stuck. I tried pulling it loose, but—" "I got it," he said simply, already inspecting the chain. "You're lucky it didn't snap." She crouched beside him, her fingers fluttering near her thighs like she didn't quite know what to do with them. "You seem to know your way around a bike." "I used to fix bikes for my son," he replied casually, tightening the chain in a quick motion before spinning the rear wheel.
There.
"You're good." Her eyes lit up with genuine relief. "Thank you. Seriously, I was about to walk it back."
I'm Cassidy Monroe.
"Noah Turner," he said, wiping his hands on the rag hanging from his back pocket. Cassidy glanced back at her bike, then at him. "Are you always this handy with strangers' bikes?" "No," he said with a slight smile. "Only when they look like they don't belong in a park trying to fix their own chain." She laughed, and it was the kind of laugh that made him look up. She had this presence strong, like she knew exactly who she was, even with grease on her hands. But there was something else too. A hint of loneliness tucked behind her smile. "You said you have a son?" she asked, as she tested the pedals.
Yeah. Kellen. He's 6.
"Wild as hell. Smart as anything. Keeps me on my toes." "Where is he now?"
School.
"I pick him up at 3, Noah said, checking his watch. "Which I should probably be heading toward." "Wait." Cassidy reached into her backpack and pulled out a bottled water. "For the mechanic." He grinned. "Thanks. You okay to get back?" "I think I owe you more than a bottle of water." "You don't," he said, already stepping away. "But if you really feel bad, there's a pizza place on Main Street. We go every Friday. Best crust in town." Cassidy's gaze held his for a beat too long. "Maybe I'll check it out." Noah gave a quick nod and jogged back toward his old pickup parked near the trail entrance, not thinking twice about the woman with the broken bike chain. Cassidy watched him go, her heart beating faster than it should have. She wasn't used to people not recognizing her, or not asking questions, or looking at her like she was just some woman in the park. The truth was, she wasn't just some woman. Cassidy Monroe was the CEO of Monroe Holdings, the youngest billionaire in the country, and very much not in the habit of letting strangers fix her bike. But there was something about him. The way he didn't ask for anything. The way he talked about his son. And that smile. The pizza place was tiny, tucked between a laundromat and a bookstore, with red booths and a jukebox that looked like it hadn't worked in years. Cassidy walked in the following Friday, heart pounding like she was doing something reckless. Because she was. She wore jeans and a hoodie, hair tied back.
No makeup.
No driver. No security. Just her. Noah looked up from his booth near the window, a pizza half-eaten between him and a little boy with messy hair and a face full of marinara. Cassidy smiled nervously. "Told you I might check it out." Noah blinked, then stood. "You found it. Is it okay?" she asked, suddenly uncertain. "I didn't mean to crash." "No, sit," he said quickly, gesturing to the booth. "Kellen, this is Cassidy." Kellen waved, mouth full of cheese. Cassidy slid into the booth across from them, nerves fluttery.
Kellen.
"You smell like perfume," he said bluntly. "Buddy," Noah warned. Cassidy laughed. "It's okay. I'll take that as a compliment." Kellen looked at his dad. "Can she have a slice?" "I don't think she came all the way here just to watch us eat," Noah said, sliding a plate toward her. Cassidy took it, trying not to let her hands shake. This felt normal, too normal, like she wasn't hiding who she was, like she belonged. "You live around here?" Noah asked as she took a bite. "Not far," she answered. Technically true. Her penthouse was a 15-minute drive away if you had a driver and access to private lanes. "I've been trying to get out more." Get some fresh air. Well, this is where the fresh air lives, Noah said, deadpan. Cassidy laughed again. You always this sarcastic? Pretty much, he said, then looked at her more seriously. You okay? She blinked. What do you mean? You looked a little
off
when you walked in. Cassidy hesitated, then offered. It's been a long week. Noah nodded like he understood. Yeah, I get that. The way he said it low and quiet, it felt like more than small talk. Like he wasn't prying, just opening the door if she wanted to step through. And she almost did. But then Kellen spilled his soda, and the moment passed. Over the next few weeks, Cassidy kept showing up. Sometimes at the park. Sometimes at the pizza place. Once at the hardware store where Noah picked up parts for his landscaping side jobs. She never told him who she really was. And he never asked. He just kept being him.
real, steady,
Protective without being pushy. Funny without trying. And Kellen? He was the cherry on top. That kid had her heart wrapped around his sticky little fingers by week 2. One afternoon, Cassidy pulled up to the park on her bike again, and Noah was already sitting at a bench, sketching something in a worn notebook while Kellen climbed the monkey bars. You sketch? She asked, sitting beside him. Landscaping layouts, he said, flipping the page. I do backyard designs when I can get the work. Is that what you want to do full-time? He shrugged. It's not about what I want. It's about what pays the bills. He glanced at her. What about you? What do you do? Cassidy's throat tightened. I consult. Big word for something vague, he teased. She laughed.
Yeah, it is.
He didn't push, just smiled and went back to his sketching. And Cassidy felt her heart slide a little further toward him. This man, with his calloused hands and quiet strength, was wrecking her world. She was falling for someone who didn't know her last name. And she didn't know how to tell him the truth. Cassidy stared at the blinking cursor on her laptop, the soft hum of her penthouse's central air the only sound in the room. A stack of untouched files sat beside her untouched espresso. She was supposed to be reviewing acquisition reports, but her fingers hovered uselessly above the keyboard. Noah Turner. She hadn't meant to let it go this far. She'd promised herself that first day in the park that she'd talk to him once, maybe twice, just to feel normal again. But now, 3 weeks later, she knew the exact way his voice dipped when he was tired, how he always ordered pineapple on his pizza even though he claimed he didn't actually like it, and that he always checked his watch at least twice before picking up Kellen, even if he wasn't running late. She closed the laptop and stood, walking to the floor-to-ceiling window that overlooked the city. Somewhere below, Noah was probably finishing up a landscaping job or washing grass stains out of Kellen's jeans. He had no idea who she was. No clue that the woman sitting across from him at that pizza booth had her face on magazine covers and sat on the boards of 3 multinational companies. And that made everything more complicated. When her phone rang, she didn't look at the caller ID before answering. Cassidy, you've got the Larchmont deal dinner tomorrow, her assistant reminded her.
Si charpat la chaîne.
I'm not going. There was a pause. You're not. Cassidy, this is a 7-figure merger. You're the reason they're even still on the table. I'm unavailable, she repeated, her voice firmer. Reschedule. She hung up before the argument could escalate. The next day, she showed up at a community fair in the park, one she'd only heard about because Kellen had mentioned it between bites of mozzarella sticks. There were face-painting booths, bounce houses, and a dunk tank where a teenager in a pirate costume heckled passers-by. Cassidy wore a baseball cap and sunglasses, but it didn't matter. No one here was looking for her. No one expected to see a billionaire weaving through crowds of toddlers and balloon animals. She found Noah by the hot dog stand, holding a lemonade in one hand and a paper plate loaded with fries in the other. I didn't think you'd come, he said when he spotted her. I didn't think I would either. Kellen ran up just then, face painted like a tiger, eyes wide with excitement.
Dad.
I won the beanbag thing 3 times. I got tickets. Nice, Noah said, ruffling his hair. You want to show Cassidy? Kellen grabbed her hand without hesitation, tugging her toward the prize booth. Noah followed, watching the two of them with something unreadable in his gaze. After Kellen picked out a plastic slinky and a glittery yo-yo, Cassidy and Noah drifted toward a quieter corner near the lake. They sat on a patch of shaded grass while Kellen chased bubbles with a group of kids nearby. Do you ever stop moving? Noah asked, stretching his legs out in front of him. I try not to, she replied, pulling a blade of grass and twisting it between her fingers. Stillness makes space for thinking. What's so bad about thinking? She hesitated. It makes things real. He didn't press, but his silence was heavier than any question. She turned to him. Do you ever think about doing something different? He raised an eyebrow. Different how? I don't know. Like taking a leap. Starting something new. I don't have the luxury of dreaming like that, he said simply. Bills don't wait. Neither does rent. Kellen needs stability. I can't afford to take a swing and miss. Cassidy's stomach twisted. But what if you didn't have to worry about all that? Then it wouldn't be real life, he said, giving her a look. You sound like someone who hasn't had to worry about the electric bill being late. She looked away, throat tight. Maybe I haven't. Noah nodded slowly. I figured. Her head whipped toward him. What do you mean? I don't know exactly who you are, he admitted. But you're not just some consultant. You wear sneakers that cost more than my truck, and you talk like someone who's used to being listened to. Why didn't you say anything before? Because you looked like you needed someone who didn't care about that. Cassidy felt her pulse throb in her throat. And now? He met her gaze. Still don't care. But I think you do. She opened her mouth, but Kellen ran up then, breathless. Cassidy, there's a magician. He made a coin come out of a kid's ear. Let's go see, she said, standing too fast. As they walked toward the stage, Noah caught her hand. His palm was warm, fingers rough with calluses. You don't have to tell me everything, he said quietly. But don't lie to me. I've had enough of that in my life. Her chest ached at the weight of his words. Later that night, she sat in the back of a black SUV, the city lights blurring outside the window. She couldn't sleep, couldn't breathe, because she knew she was standing on the edge of something that didn't come around twice. And she was going to lose it if she didn't make a choice. The next morning, she showed up at Noah's garage unannounced. He was under the hood of a rusted sedan, engine oil staining his forearms. He looked up surprised. Cassidy. I have something to show you, she said, voice trembling. He studied her for a long moment, then wiped his hands on a rag and followed her outside. She led him to the curb, where a silver luxury SUV idled, its driver waiting behind the wheel. She opened the back door and pulled out a folder. This is a business proposal, she said, handing it to him. A real one. I bought a property on the east side. It's zoned for commercial landscape design. There's a nursery and a showroom attached. I want you to run it. Noah didn't take the folder. Why? Because you're good at what you do, she said. And because I believe in you. He stepped back. Cassidy, what is this? It's a chance. One you said you'd never have. I didn't ask for this. I know, she whispered. But I can't keep pretending like I'm not in a position to help someone when I can. His jaw clenched. You think this is about money? No, she said quickly. It's about seeing someone who deserves more and doing something about it. He looked at her like he didn't know whether to be furious or grateful. You should have told me sooner. I was afraid. Of what? That once you knew who I really was, everything would change. He finally took the folder. It already has. And he walked back into the garage without another word. Rain came down in a steady rhythm, soft against the roof of Noah's garage. He stood in the open bay, the business proposal still in his hands, unread. The edges had curled slightly from the dampness in the air, but he hadn't moved to take it inside. Not yet. Cassidy hadn't followed him in. She'd given him something that felt too close to a lifeline, one he hadn't asked for, one he didn't know how to accept. He finally set the folder on his workbench, grabbed his keys, and locked up the shop. Kellen would be out of school in 20 minutes. Every second after that would belong to his son, as it always did. When he pulled up to the elementary school, Kellen was already waiting under the overhang with Mrs. Denvers, a kind-eyed teacher who always sent him home with notes about the drawings Kellen sketched in class. "Dad, you're early," Kellen said, hopping into the truck and kicking off his shoes with practiced ease. "Rain makes the work go slow," Noah said, pulling back onto the road. "You hungry?" There was spaghetti at lunch, but it was the weird kind.
So yeah.
They ended up at a diner on the edge of town, the kind with checkered floors and cracked leather booths. Kellen colored on the placemat with a green crayon while Noah stirred his coffee, the business proposal still weighing on his mind like an anchor. "Hey," Kellen said suddenly, eyes flicking up. "Is Cassidy mad at you?" Noah's spoon froze. "Why would you ask that? She always says hi first. But today, she didn't even look at me when we saw her in the lot. She just got in the black car and left." Noah didn't answer right away. "She's not mad." Grown-ups just get confused sometimes. About what? About what matters. Kellen went back to drawing without another question, but the words echoed louder in Noah's mind than he liked. That night, after Kellen fell asleep with a book still open on his chest, Noah stepped onto the porch, the rain now a whisper against the leaves. He opened the folder.
Site plans.
Budget projections. Zoning permits already approved. A signed letter of intent with his name at the bottom. Cassidy hadn't just bought a space, she'd built out an entire blueprint of what his future could look like. And she had done it quietly, without fanfare. But it was still too much. The next morning, he drove to the east side. The address she'd written led to a modest storefront with boarded windows and a cracked sidewalk, but he could see it the way sunlight would hit the glass once it was cleaned, how the back lot would carry the scent of soil and fresh-cut cedar. There was even a small greenhouse, half covered in ivy, waiting to be revived. He didn't go inside. Instead, he drove to her building. The security guard at the front desk stared at his boots with visible disapproval, but made the call anyway. A moment later, the elevator opened to the top floor. Cassidy answered her door barefoot, wearing a navy sweater and loose pants. Her hair was still damp from a shower, curling slightly at the ends. She didn't greet him. "I saw the place," he said. "Okay. I didn't go in." "Also okay. You bought it for me." "No," she said, stepping aside so he could enter. "I bought it because it deserved to exist. I offered it to you because you were the only person I trusted to make it real." He crossed the room slowly, taking in the view from the windows. The sky was still heavy with clouds, but the city stretched below them in sharp detail. "Cassidy, I can't accept something like this. You didn't read the clauses, did you? I'm not going to owe you something I can't pay." "You wouldn't owe me anything," she said, moving to the kitchen and pouring 2 glasses of water. "I wrote you in as a co-founder, not an employee. It's yours as much as it's mine." He stared at her. She set the glass down on the marble counter, her hands steady. "You think this is about charity. It's not. It's about partnership. I build things with my hands. I don't know anything about business structure or overheads, or then I'll teach you," she said. "Or I'll hire someone to do it. But the work, the vision, that's yours. You've already done it in every backyard you've touched." He exhaled, dragging a hand over his jaw. "You're dangerous, you know that?" Her brow lifted. "Why?" "Because you make people believe in things they gave up on." She didn't answer. "I'm terrified to accept this," he admitted. Because if I do and I fail, it won't just be about me. It'll be about Kellen. It'll be about proving every voice in my head right. Cassidy stepped closer. Then let me be the voice that tells you you're wrong. He looked down at her. Why me? Because you saw me when I wasn't trying to be seen, she said. And you didn't ask for anything. You didn't expect anything. You just showed up. His voice was rough. I'm not used to being chosen. Well, she said, her heart in her throat. You are. Silence stretched between them. Noah closed the distance. And what if I don't want the business without the woman who believed in it? He asked. Then maybe, she whispered, you're finally ready to believe in something bigger than both of us. He kissed her. It wasn't tentative or slow. It was the kind of kiss that burned through fear and doubt and the weight of everything unsaid. Her hands slid into his hair, and his arms pulled her close like he'd wanted to do since the first time she laughed in that pizza booth. When they broke apart, breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. I still don't know how this works, he said. You and me. We figure it out, she said. One day at a time. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled back slightly, checked the screen, and smiled. Kellen just asked if he could bring you to movie night. She blinked. That's a thing. Every Saturday. Popcorn, couch fort, bad animated dragons. Non-negotiable. I'll bring candy, she said. You'll be his favorite person. I'm kind of hoping to be yours too. He kissed her again, softer this time. You already are. The first time Cassidy stepped into the new space with Noah, the sun had just started pouring through the east-facing windows, catching the dust in the air like gold suspended in light. She didn't speak as he walked ahead of her, his boots echoing against the concrete floor, eyes taking in every corner with the slow reverence of someone who didn't believe it was real until that moment. He stopped near the back wall, where cracked plaster revealed original brick underneath. I could put a vertical garden here, he said, more to himself than to her. Herbs, maybe. People love the aesthetic of something that smells alive. Cassidy leaned against the doorframe. Then let's make it yours. He turned, one brow raised.
Ours.
You said ours. I did, she replied, stepping further inside. But I meant yours. I've got a boardroom full of projects. This one's not about me. He folded his arms, still scanning the space. It is though. Because without you, there's no blueprint.
No permits.
No name. Cassidy ran her fingers along the edge of a dusty windowsill. Have you thought of one? He hesitated, then pulled a folded paper from his jacket pocket. Kellen came up with it last night. She opened the paper and laughed softly. Scrawled in blue crayon were the words root and rise, underlined twice with little stars beside them. He said it sounded like something that grows even when it's hard. Noah said, watching her. I figured that's what we're doing. She looked up at him, the moment catching her in the chest. You're really going to do this? I already started, he said. I called a contractor this morning. Told them to meet me here Monday. We'll fix the roof line and bring in some new glass. And the rest. I'll figure it out. I always do. But this time, I'm not alone. She crossed to him, took his hand. No, you're not. They spent the rest of the afternoon mapping out the space. He walked her through the layout he'd envisioned, an open showroom with wide tables for design models, a workshop in the back for hands-on demos, and a corner for Kellen to do homework when he tagged along after school. Cassidy made notes, asked questions, but didn't steer. She let him take the lead, and he did confidently, decisively. That night, she didn't go back to her penthouse. Instead, they made grilled cheese in his kitchen while Kellen filled a shoebox with seed packets he'd picked up from a school project. When the boy finally fell asleep on the couch with his arms wrapped around a potted succulent, Noah turned to her, hands still warm from the sink. You don't have to stay, he said, leaning against the counter. She tilted her head. Do you want me to go? He met her eyes. No, then I'm staying. The next few weeks passed in a blur of motion. Contractors came and went. Paint samples covered the walls. Cassidy juggled conference calls in the back seat of her SUV while Noah drilled shelving brackets into freshly painted drywall. She never mentioned the word billionaire again, and he never asked what her net worth was. It didn't matter. What mattered was that he showed up every morning before the crew and stayed until the lights flickered off at night. One Thursday evening, as they locked up, Cassidy turned toward him with flushed cheeks and wind-swept hair from hauling planters across the parking lot. "I have to fly out tomorrow," she said. "Board meeting in Zurich." "It's only 2 days." Noah nodded, expression unreadable. "You need someone to watch the penthouse?" She grinned. "I think it'll survive without me. But I'll miss you." He leaned in, brushing a kiss against her forehead. "Then come back."
She did.
2 days later, she walked into the greenhouse and found the vertical garden already halfway built. Kellen was on a step stool, placing little signs in the soiled basil, thyme, mint while Noah adjusted the irrigation tubing. Cassidy crouched beside the boy. "Looks like you two didn't need me after all." Kellen beamed. "We're practicing for opening day. Dad says people will want to see everything growing." "When is opening day?" 2 weeks. She blinked. "You set a date?" Noah looked up from the tubing. "We're almost there." Thought it was time. That night, they sat on the unfinished showroom floor, a pizza box between them and music playing softly from an old speaker. Cassidy leaned against Noah's shoulder, her legs stretched out, shoes kicked off. "I never told you what happened to Kellen's mom," he said suddenly, voice low. She didn't move. "You don't have to. I want to." She waited. "She left when he was 2. Said she wasn't cut out for small towns or diapers. Said I was too quiet, too grounded. I haven't seen her since." Cassidy's hand found his. "I'm sorry." He shook his head. "Don't be. He's better off. And he made me better. Everything I am now is because of him." She turned her face to his. "He's lucky to have you." "He's not the only one." The grand opening came on a Saturday. Cassidy stood behind the register, watching families filter in as Kellen guided them around like a miniature tour guide. The vertical garden was lush. The showroom gleamed. And Noah, dressed in a crisp button-down and clean jeans, looked like he'd been born to run a business. A local reporter took photos. A city councilman shook Noah's hand. Cassidy hung back, letting him take the spotlight. When the ribbon was cut and the applause died down, she stepped outside for air. Noah followed a moment later. "You made today happen," he said, sliding his hand into hers. "You did the work." "We did it," he corrected.
Together.
She turned toward him. "You know, I used to think falling in love would feel like losing control. And now it feels like finding the ground." He kissed her then, not because anyone was watching, but because no one needed to. It was quiet and certain, the way sunlight feels after a long storm. Later that night, after the last guest left and Kellen finally passed out in the back room surrounded by balloons, Noah pulled Cassidy close in the middle of the empty showroom. "I never thought someone like you would end up in my world." She smiled, resting her head against his chest. "Turns out, I didn't need a world full of power. I just needed one that felt like home." And in the quiet hum of the greenhouse lights, in the warmth of the hand that held hers, home had finally found her too. Cassidy stood in front of the mirror in Noah's bathroom, pinning her hair up while the warm light from the vanity softened the edges of her reflection. Outside the cracked window, early morning sunlight spilled across the backyard, catching on the dew-drenched grass and the wooden playset where Kellen had spent most of yesterday launching paper airplanes. A quiet knock on the door made her pause. "You awake?" Noah's voice was muffled but unmistakable. "I'm decent," she called back. The door opened a few inches, and he leaned in, already dressed in dark jeans and a navy t-shirt that clung to his shoulders. I was thinking, we take the day. Just us. She turned, eyebrow raised. And Kellen? My sister's got him. She picked him up half an hour ago. Something about a science museum and a promise to let him eat way too much cotton candy. Cassidy blinked in surprise. You planned that? I did. She crossed the room, her voice cautious. What's going on? His hand closed gently around hers as he pulled her toward the hallway. You'll see. They drove in his truck, windows down, the spring breeze threading through her jacket. Noah didn't say where they were going, and she didn't ask. The silence between them was full, comfortable. After nearly an hour, he pulled off the main road and onto a narrow gravel path that wound through a grove of trees. At the end of the lane stood a single-story cabin, small but well-kept, with wide windows and a wraparound porch overlooking a quiet lake. Cassidy stepped out of the truck slowly. Where are we? My dad built this place before I was born, Noah said, coming up behind her. We used to come here when I was a kid. After he died, I stopped. I think I wanted to forget it existed. And now? I want to remember, he said simply. With you. Inside, the cabin smelled faintly of cedar and old books. A stone fireplace dominated one side of the room, and a pair of armchairs faced the lake through the glass doors. Cassidy ran her fingers along a shelf of dusty photo frames, black and white snapshots of a younger Noah with a man who looked like him, laughing beside a canoe. I didn't know you had this place, she said. I didn't tell you, because I wasn't ready to come back. But after Root and Rise opened, after everything, I realized I didn't want this to be forgotten anymore. She turned to face him. Why bring me here? Because this place held who I was, and you're the person who helped me figure out who I want to be now. Her throat tightened. Noah. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Cassidy's breath caught. I don't have a penthouse or a private jet. And I'll probably never understand the full extent of what you've built. But I know how to build a life, he said. One that's honest and solid and full of love. He opened the box. Nestled inside was a delicate gold ring, set with a single oval sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. It was elegant, not flashy, and so deeply personal it made her chest ache. I want to build that life with you, Cassidy. I want mornings with burnt toast and paint-covered hands. I want late nights at the greenhouse and movie nights with Kellen. I want everything with you. Will you marry me? She didn't cry. Instead, she stepped forward and kissed him, her hands shaking as she pressed her forehead to his. Yes, she whispered. Yes, Noah. I want all of it. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. They spent the rest of the day on the porch, wrapped in a blanket as the wind stirred the surface of the lake. That night, they made dinner in the tiny kitchen, grilled vegetables and roasted fish, and danced barefoot to an old jazz record playing on a dusty stereo. When they finally fell asleep in the narrow bed beneath the slanted ceiling, Cassidy thought she'd never felt more at peace. In the weeks that followed, everything moved quickly, but nothing felt rushed. Cassidy handed over day-to-day control of her companies to her executive team, choosing instead to focus on the parts of her work that brought her joy: mentorship, strategy, and philanthropy. She funded a grant program through Root and Rise, offering resources to young designers and green space advocates who didn't have traditional access to capital. Noah expanded the greenhouse, adding a classroom where he taught weekend workshops on sustainable landscaping. Kellen started his own compost bin and insisted on giving all the plants names. They married in the garden behind the shop, surrounded by friends, family, and a community that had grown to love them as much as they loved each other. Cassidy wore a tea-length ivory dress and no shoes. Noah wore a gray suit with a boutonniere made from a sprig of rosemary and a single white rose. Kellen stood between them, proudly holding the rings. The vows were simple. Noah promised to keep her grounded and to never let her forget how far she could fly. Cassidy promised to love him in every season, in every storm, and in every quiet moment in between. They sealed it with a kiss beneath a canopy of string lights and stars. Afterward, they danced barefoot in the dirt while Kellen spun in circles nearby, covered in cake and grass stains. That night, as they lay in bed under an open window, the sound of crickets blending with the soft rustle of the wind, Cassidy turned toward him. "Did you ever think this would be your life?" "No," he said honestly, brushing her hair back from her face. "But now that it is, I can't imagine anything else." She smiled, her hand resting over his heart. "Neither can I." And as they drifted to sleep, limbs tangled and the scent of lavender clinging to the sheets, Cassidy knew one thing with absolute certainty. She hadn't just fallen in love with a man. She'd found her forever.